The mortgage mistake. Let's see what our man William Baldwin has to say about the mortgage mistake from Forbes magazine, dateline January 5th. Where are you, buddy? All right. 7 rules for wealth, number 5. He calls it the mortgage mistake, so we shall see. Shall we? I actually read this already, which kind of led me to my 3-part series on mortgages. If you have a mortgage, don't own a bond. And let's see what he says. I've read this guy before, and I can't remember who sent this to me, but mucho gracias. That means thanks a lot in Spanish. How do you say thanks in French? Oui. Merci, right? Merci, thanks. And coq de la in Russian is, how are you? There you go. Trilingual, not quite Melania Trump-ish yet, but I'm getting there. All right. So Willie Baldwin says, every personal finance commentator tells you to get out of credit card debt. I'll take this logic a step further by condemning mortgages. They're condemned. You're going to hell. Who's my man? Some guy, I forgot his name. Scott, I think, or Skip Scott. Said, you know it's annoying when you raise your voice like that. I said, Scott, why are you here? You never have anything good to say about the channel. There's tons of other channels to go to. Or start your own. It's okay. You know you're so annoying. I just don't understand. I get it, whatever. It's, I just laugh. I remember a long time ago, there's a Nick Gillespie, this must be well over 20 years ago. He was being interviewed by somebody, and he came across, I thought, like a pompous ass. He had his leather jacket on. He just seemed like he was holier than thou. And I remember, it was probably in the late 90s. I said, man, Nick, your arguments are freaking stellar, but you just come across like a pompous ass with that leather jacket with your, it seemed like a holier than thou thing. And I remember I didn't email that, just in the comment section where I was. And I always forget that look in hindsight. I said, now I was before we knew what a troll was, but now I get the same thing. And, look, some people are going to like it. Some people aren't going to like it. You just got to be you and let the chips fall where they may. And I'll never forget that. Now I get some of that arrows thrown my way. You talk too much. You don't go to the point. You're a Nazi because you like Trump. Your voice is annoying. I love it. All right, so Bill, back to William Baldwin. Once upon a time, a mortgage was a ticket to prosperity. Someone who bought a suburban home in the 60s on a 30-year mortgage enjoyed a bounteous growth in the home's value while repaying the debt with inflated dollars. The mortgage interest and property taxes were tax deductible. I wonder if they actually did. Let's pause there real quick, shall we? Man, I just closed out I've been having this thing I've been wanting to use for a long time on Zillow. Hold on just a second. I still have. There's a Zillow website where you can actually go to the actual tables, which I have on my other computers. It's going to be a hard time kind of finding this. But if we just go to Census Bureau Housing and we just look at from 1970 when I was born, the median home value in the U.S. was $65,000, and in 2000, 30 years later, is only $119,000, which gives us a 2% rate of return. Right? I kind of the idea that housing has been stellar as an investment relative to stocks is silly, but if people fall for that all the time. And then on top of that, the idea like everyone had a pension is simply not true. And this is from the sense of housing. This only goes to 2000. Look, man, it's going to be even worse in 2010. Because of the Great Recession of 2000. So, and this is just let me see if I can't find that Zillow thing. Hold on just a second. I'll see if I can. Because I'm looking on this computer here. Let's just look at the 10-year annualized from, this is going back to the end of 2018, it looks like. The 10-year annualized return year over year for the U.S. from 2010 to 2008 or 2009 to 2018 is the median home value in the U.S. is $229,000. The 10-year annualized is 3.3. All right, so that's after the horrific decade of the aughts, and so we know that the 2% from 1970 to 2000, then it was 3.3 from basically 2009 to 2018. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to realize that the housing debt or the housing market has not been a huge benefit in terms of your overall wealth, that's for sure. I mean, if we look at 1970, here's California. It started at 88,000, so we take our trusty calculator. Link in the show notes if you want to buy your own. We hit Trusty Calculator, 88,000. We put a zero negatives in front of that, make that present value. Net ending value is 211. Future value, excuse me, and then compute interest rate 2.89. So from California, it's less than 3, and from 1970 when I was born to 2000, in California, it was 5.1 from 2009 to 2018. So that's pretty good, but not anywhere near stocks, man. All right, and then what happened? And from 2000 to 2009, I don't know. This just goes back to 10 years. A B C E F G H I J. Yeah, it only goes back to 10 years. So all right, let's keep going. So I take issue with that. Now, again, that's just one thing here. All right, so bear with me. Today's buyer will enjoy no such fortune because let's see, because the bounteous growth in homes value from the 60s on. Today's the gain is mostly tax exempt, and you had mortgage interest and property taxes that were tax deductible. Today's buyer will enjoy no such fortune. Inflation's down, tax rules are different, debt of all kinds, including mortgage debt, is for losers. That's weird. If you really want to enjoy the joys and hazards of home ownership and a mortgage is necessary, then go ahead, borrow and buy. But don't expect to get a windfall out of the debt the way your parents did. It's just, why make these claims, man? I don't understand it. After moving in, make paying down the mortgage rapidly a priority. This may astound you. A mortgage paydown is often better than putting the extra money into a 401k or a college savings account. How can that be? Doesn't the tax code reward retirement savings? Doesn't it subsidize mortgages? Well, it used to, but then came the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 and a fat standard deduction. For a lot of middle class, the itemization for interest does little or no good. And if you aren't itemizing, the average tax cost of a 4% mortgage is 4%. To turn this around, money invested in paying off that mortgage has literally an after-tax 4% return guaranteed. And I 100% agree with that. What kind of after-tax return do you get on a 401k? Let's assume that you've put in enough to get the employer match, and you've got another $10,000 from your salary that you don't need in your emergency reserve. It could go into the retirement account or into the mortgage. Next assumption has to do with your marginal tax rate. You might have been thinking that the tax brackets go down in retirement, but that's probably too optimistic given that the federal government is running a big deficit and state pension funds are underwater. It's fair to assume your marginal rate will stay the same, if not go up. I completely agree with that. Suppose you can pay that $10,000 away, will double to $20,000. Posit a constant tax bracket plus federal plus state of 35%. That seems pretty high to me, but whatever. If you use a 401k, the whole sum gets invested, but when it comes out, that's only $13,000 after tax. If you don't use a 401k, you only have $6,500 to invest because you don't get the tax write-off on the front end. Invest the same way that $6,500 would double to $13,000 if you were exempt from income tax on the earnings. Thus, we can describe the 401k tax shelter as simply an exemption from income tax on investment returns. This is identical to what the tax shelter on 529 accounts give. Okay. How much can you earn on a guaranteed investment inside of 401k? Well, the 30-year Treasury bonds yield 2.3. That's your pre-tax return. If they're in the 401k, that's also your after-tax return. If they're in a 401k and you get 2.3%, that's your pre-tax and there's your after-tax return? That doesn't make any sense to me at all because you got to pay tax on withdrawals. I don't get it. So we have a 4% guaranteed after-tax return on the mortgage paydown versus a 2.3% guaranteed after-tax on the 401k. Getting rid of the mortgage is a smart move, but it's even smarter because, William, you're not getting a 2.3%. This is why I was doing the video, don't have bonds. You're getting 2.3% minus whatever tax bracket you're in. That's weird to me. So I don't get it. It's an odd argument he's making where he's hurting his own argument. But his argument is valid. 2.3% on a 30-year guaranteed government bond or 4% by paying down your mortgage. Okay. What if you're planning to invest a 401k in stocks? They'll probably do better than 2.3% over the next 30 years, but simply isn't valid to compare a zero-risk investment, i.e. paying down debt, to a risky investment buying stocks. If you want to increase your equity exposure, there are cheaper ways to do it than by carrying a mortgage. You could, for example, reallocate some of your existing retirement accounts from bonds and stocks. Again, going back to what I said about don't own bonds in your retirement account if you have a mortgage. or you can reallocate from average stocks to risky stocks. What's a risky stock? There are to be sure, people who should put the extra $10,000 in the retirement account. Perhaps you're sure to be moving from a high tax to a low tax state, and you are sure you won't be paying income tax-based Medicare surcharge. Or you're able to fully use the mortgage interest deduction because you have $10,000 in state and local taxes plus $14,800 in charitable deductions. Or you see the 401k as a emergency reserve via a loan option in the plan. Exactly. Still, for a lot of taxpayers, a good rule of thumb is a mortgage is a millstone around the neck. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't get the argument, but I agree with the bulk of that. Let's see what the other table of contents are here. So, I like that for the most part. We got number one is put it all in one fund. All right, create your own yield. Maybe don't buy a long-term care policy. All right. Cut your portfolio management costs. Pay off your mortgage rapidly. Moonlight. Count your blessings. All right, interesting. I have to look at some of this other stuff, but advancing inclusion at the Reykjavik Global Forum, women leaders. Inclusion. All right, well, anyway, there you go. So if I hear diversity inclusion again, look, I love diversity, including people, but man, all these people are just social virtue signaling. We're for diversity and inclusion. Oh, man, stop it. Stop it. Oh, there you go. 7 rules for wealth and mortgage mistake. Hope you find this helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, comment and smash. I will see you.